Chapter 10 starts with generations. These are the scriptures that we always try to skip. I dare you. Please go check out all the genealogies. Look at the names, what they mean, and the patterns, how they change, and how they are used in the Bible. It is a revelation of principles set down so we can understand. He says, these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, Japheth, and unto them were born after the flood. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Dubal, Meshach, Tiras, and the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz. Now he goes into the generations of the three sons of Noah. And what's very interesting is when he talks about Japheth, he talks about Gomer and the Magog, Gog and Magog, Meshach, Tubal. These are all names that we pick up in Revelation. And it literally means the different nations, because in verse 5 he says, by these are all the islands of Gentiles. Islands you get in the seas. So the sea is the people, and out of the sea came 4 animals in Daniel. In other words, out of the peoples. They were separated from the people of God. It was the seas, and they were formed out of the seed line of Noah. Because remember, the seed line of Noah was the raven generation. And they divided into the lands, everyone after his tongue and after his family in the nations. Okay, here they all have different tongues and different families. And this is where wars between people started. Now, all these things has a purpose in the Bible, and it's all pictures playing out. Now, I finally come to the realization that the things that happen in my life, everything has purpose. And when we stop the blame game and say, God, why did you do that? And why did you do this? You will start realizing that this life we have is not eternal. You can't stop living. You've got to live your life. But everything that happens to you, every person that you meet, everything that you do has purpose. If my husband never had a TV channel, I would not be able to produce this because I was the first editor in the channel. And they couldn't tell me you can't do it because I edited. And today I'm picking up the benefits of it. I can't even tell you how many times I saw the sun coming up, and I had 3 children, and it was rough in the beginning. But today I'm picking the fruits of it, and I can lay down all the revelations I get in the Word without having to pay someone to do it. Stop moaning and groaning about your situation and step out of your cycle into the eternal purposes of God, which is from beginning to the end. He is the beginning and the end. In the seed line of Cush, he said in verse 8 says, and Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one on the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. He was one of the giants. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, mighty hunter before God, and the beginning of his kingdom was Babel. Babel literally means confusion. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. 4 cities. This was not the first cities built. The first city that was ever built was built by Cain, who left the presence of God, and he called his first city Enoch. Now, in the seed line of Seth, the 7th was Enoch. And Enoch walked with God, and he communed with God. It means communion, and he never died. Cain, he named his child after a city, Enoch. The 7th from Adam. This is the yearning that man have towards God. Man is created and eternity is placed within man. Why? You are made in the image and the likeness of God. And it doesn't matter who you are, where you are. You will always have this yearning for God. And it comes out in everything in the world. Well, today, people declare that they are not male or not female. They want a genderless generation. That is nothing else than a cry out for God, because in Christ we are no male or female, but in the natural world we are. And that is why people do not understand the realms and the purposes of God. If you understand the realms and the purposes of God, I don't have to deny who I am as a natural creature, because I have stepped into the spiritual realm, and I don't have to fight to be a man or a woman. I am what I am by the grace of God. So these names note that Nimrod built the first 4 cities. Babel, confusion. Erech, it means long. Akkad means it's subtle. Well, it says Satan was more subtle than any creature. Why cities? It's a dwelling. Please, we cannot read this separate. Jesus came, the first sermon, he said, you're a city set on a hill. We have to understand hills. The first hill was Ararat. The curse is removed. So when Solomon, the backslidden preacher, wrote the book of Song of Solomon, this was a cry that he was longing for God. And he wrote, he says, my beloved comes leaping over the hills, skipping over the mountains, leaping over the hills. And if we look through history, oh my word, it's Abram, Moriah, Horeb, Nebo, then it was Carmel, Mount of Transfiguration, and then it was the same place, Moriah, which is now Golgotha, which brings us to the city set on a hill. Daniel 2 reveals the rock that was cut loose from the mountain. What mountain? The mountain where Moses was, Horeb. And it hit the statue, and it became a big mountain that filled the earth. These are all so intertwined in the Spirit. Do not get stuck in separate lives and not understand the purposes of God. This was all in the land of Shinar. This means the land of 2 rivers. Whoa! In Genesis, there was one river that came from Eden, and it broke up in 4 rivers. The Pison, the Gihon, the Tigris, and the Euphrates. And this garden manifested on earth. But now, Shinar is the land of 2 rivers. So the provision from above was cut off, and all they had was this natural world. And the next city that was built was Nineveh. And we all know Jonah went to Nineveh, because these big cities and these big empires, you know, the Bible calls them trees that came from Eden. These big characters that built cities and high places and empires were literally trees that came from the Garden of Eden. So they were left in this fallen state, and now all they had was this, we must be big, we must be big. So out of that land of 2 rivers came forth Asher. Asher means a step. So he went one step further, and he builded Nineveh. And we all know what Nineveh is. Well, God warned Nineveh, and he says, I'm going to take you out. And Nineveh repented. And this is just amazing. Well, today there's nothing left of those cities, and Nineveh is just a heap of ruins. And the city of Rehoboth, wide places or wide streets. And this is what the world represents to us. Well, narrow is the road that leads to God, because it's one way. It's only Jesus. There is no other way. He says, He is the way, and you better get into Him to be on the way. But I love it. He says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. I want to say it, He's the way of truth to life, but you have to get into Him. Out of that land of 2 rivers, the land of Shinar, went forth Asher. Now, this means a step. This is a guy that took a step, and he built Nineveh, Rehoboth, and Kala. Rehoboth means wide streets, and Kala means vigor. Nineveh just means abode of Nebu's which is a false god. And there was Rezin, meaning bridle, between Nineveh and Calah, and the same is a great city. After all the cities, here comes the genealogy of Shem. This is very interesting, and it's like, it can get very boring. But if you think what he's saying here, it's really of note. It's really something to take note of. Unto Shem also, he says, the father of all children of Eber. And he goes on, he says, the children of Shem were Elam, Ezer, Arpachshad, Lut, Aram, and the children of Aram, Uz, Hul, and he goes on with the genealogy. And then he comes to Arpachshad, and he says, he begat Selah, and Selah begat Eber. And unto Eber were born two sons, the name of one who was Peleg, and in his days the earth was divided, and his brother's name was Joktan. Why does he, from the beginning, mentions Eber? Because Eber, the whole Hebrew language, is also called Eber, and it's like, it's those people that developed that language. This was of major importance. He concentrates on Eber, and then he ends the families of Seth. Now chapter 11 starts, and the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. Yet in chapter 10, we already read that they were different nations, and they were isles, and all their generations were set up. So chapter 11 is actually a spiritual chapter that reveals to us what happened, why they were so divided. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, the land of two rivers. And they dwelt there, and said one to another, go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. So we're going to take from the earth dust, and we're going to really do this thing from our side. And they had brick for stone, and slime they had for mortar, and they said, let us build a city and a tower. It makes me think of God that said, let us make man. And here man is trying to be God. Let us build a city and a tower whose top may reach the heaven, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we scatter abroad upon the face of the whole earth. Now, you have to understand this spiritual book, because this was also way before Moses lived. It's all part of the vision. The Lord came down to see. So God has eyes. And he came down to see the city and the tower, which the children of men built. And the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they began to do. And now nothing will restrain them from which they have imagined to do. So we see before the flood, people lived up to 1,000 years, and they were just up to all nonsense that you can ever think of. Because God had them come out of the garden and said, they are like one of us now. They know good and evil. And here he says, they are of one language, and nothing is going to stop them. And amazingly, what God did is he confused their language, so they will never be in unity again. And never ever on the face of the earth can man be in one again. Clothes wouldn't bring them. You can dress a whole army the same. Everyone's got their own mind. You can train them. Eventually it will disperse. But the only way you can get people to be of one mind again is to get their language back. That is why when Jesus poured out the Spirit, he restored our language. And we have a language that makes us one. And it doesn't matter what nation you get to, what culture you get to. When you step into it, what do you have? One language. We speak the same language. We don't understand each other's language, but we worship God the same way. God scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of the earth. Exactly what they feared happened to them. And they left off to build the city. God will not let them build the city because he's building a city. And he called a nation to build this city and this tower. and that was infiltrated by Satan. So when Jesus came, he said, you serpent seed, you vipers, break down this house that Moses built. I will build my house. Now, if you get stuck in the stories again, you'll never step into the eternal purpose, because you're actually the house and the city that he built. I'll show you the bride, a city set on a hill. Therefore, the name of this place is called Babel, confusion. This is all the world has to offer, because the Lord there did confound the language of all the earth, and from thence they were scattered. And once again, he picks up the generations of Shem, and the other seed lines are not mentioned here, because the Bible is all about the seed line of the sons. It's like you get Cain's seed line, but Seth's seed line. It's in Seth's seed line that the sons of God seed line promise is, and now it is in Shem. Shem means name. So God said, I'm not going to let you build a tower and build a name. I'm going to build the tower. He used Shem, meaning name. So he will build the tower, and he will build his tower. And he clearly said he counted the cost before he even started. And in the seed line of Shem, we found Eber.